When Robyn joined the Brown family, she didn't come to break anything. She came to belong. For her, plural marriage wasn't rebellion, it was redemption. A second chance. A way to find both love and faith after heartbreak. She believed in the promise that Kody preached: unity, faith, and eternal family. But Robyn didn't just want a husband. She wanted sisterhood. She wanted to be part of something bigger than herself. When Kody first met Robyn, she was soft-spoken, warm, and deeply spiritual. She had a calmness about her that hadn't been felt in the family in years. She had 3 children from a previous marriage and a heart open enough to love again. Instantly, Kody was taken with her. His eyes lit up in a way that hadn't been seen since the early days with Meri, but that light seemed like a shadow to the other wives. Meri had encouraged Kody to court Robyn, believing it would strengthen their faith. But when Robyn entered their lives, something changed. Kody was smitten, and the wives could sense it. At first, everyone tried to welcome her. Christine helped her with the kids. Janelle shared advice about balancing work and faith, and Meri leaned on their shared friendship. As time went by, however, small cracks started to appear. Little moments of exclusion, hesitation, and quiet jealousy. Robyn didn't mean to be the center of it, but Kody made her the symbol of everything he thought his marriage should be. When the family gathered, his attention would linger on her. When decisions were made, her opinion mattered most. When she cried, he comforted her instantly. And when the others cried, he called them emotional. The imbalance was visible long before anyone admitted it. Robyn felt it too. She could see how her presence caused tension, how her happiness came at the cost of someone else's peace. She prayed for harmony, believing that if she loved harder, the others would accept her. But the more she tried, the worse things got. Christine saw the favoritism and felt betrayed. Janelle withdrew, focusing on her independence. Meri, already isolated, now watched the husband she once adored pour his heart into another woman. And Kody? He was convinced Robyn was his reward, the evidence that his faith and leadership had meaning. To Robyn, the attention was both a blessing and a curse. She wanted love, but not at the expense of unity. She wanted Kody's affection, not his obsession. Yet every time she tried to pull back to create balance, he leaned in closer. Kody started to change. He became defensive, paranoid, and protective toward Robyn. He said he was protecting her from the jealousy of the others, but what he was doing was building a wall. And the higher the wall grew, the further the family drifted apart. To the world, Robyn was the favorite wife, the woman who broke the balance, the one who smiled while others suffered. But behind closed doors, Robyn was crying, not because she wanted control, but because she wanted connection. She could see the resentment in Christine's eyes, the distance in Janelle's silence, and the pain in Meri's forced smiles. She tried to fix it with empathy, with long talks, with tears. But the damage wasn't hers to fix. This was a family that had been fractured long before she arrived. Only her presence revealed what was already broken. Kody began spending more time at Robyn's house. It started out innocently enough, helping with the kids, bonding with her, sharing his worries. But it soon became his home base. The other wives noticed it. So did the children. When he wasn't with Robyn, he was talking about Robyn. The balance was gone. The illusion of equality that once defined the family had dissolved. And with each of her tears, the other wives grew colder. To them, her tears were not of grief, but of guilt. A guilt that she never talked about but had shown in every soft apology. Every trembling voice. Every time she had tried to utter and say she was sorry for something she did not mean to cause. Robyn had wanted to be a bridge, but she had become a boundary. When the cameras rolled, she tried to hold herself together. Her tears became part of the narrative misunderstood as manipulation, when they were really the last defense of a woman watching her dream collapse in slow motion. She wanted peace, but there was pain around her. She wanted family, and she was becoming the symbol of division. She had thought she was joining a legacy on the day that she came to the Browns, some sort of spiritual family chosen by faith. Instead, she found a crumbling structure held together by expectation and fear. As a new sister wife in her first season, Robyn told the cameras, I just want everyone to love each other." At the time, it sounded hopeful. Now it sounds like a plea. She couldn't see it at the time, but Robyn had become both the newest wife and the last one standing. As Kody's attention shifted fully to her, she realized something chilling. Being a favorite didn't mean being loved more. It would mean being left with the burden of holding together what was already falling apart. Robyn's tears were never about guilt or power. They were mourning for the family that never really accepted her, for the dream that crumbled under its own weight, and for the faith that no longer felt like salvation. She didn't know it then, but those tears would become her legacy, the image that defined the collapse of the Browns. The wife who did not want to win had been crowned queen of a kingdom that was already in ruins. Robyn thought time would soften things. She thought that by continuing to show kindness, by continuing to stay in a patient, humble place, the sister wives would see her heart. She prayed every night for unity. But prayer alone couldn't heal the kind of cracks that were already spreading through the Brown family. By the second year of her marriage, the line between Robyn and the others was visible. It wasn't drawn in any anger at first, just quiet avoidance, short answers, and unspoken tension. Christine and Janelle started spending less and less time with her. Meri withdrew, carrying her private sadness. And Kody, rather than noticing the distance, exacerbated it. He began the more frequent defense of Robyn, his peacemaker. Whenever the other wives voiced frustration, he'd say they were being unfair. When Christine cried, Kody accused her of jealousy. When Janelle asked for balance, he told her to stop stirring conflict. For him, protecting Robyn was proof that he loved her. To everyone else, it looked like favoritism. Robyn felt trapped in the middle. She didn't want to be the favorite, she just wanted to be accepted. But the harder she tried to fix things, the worse they became. Every apology sounded so hollow, every act of kindness interpreted as pity. Her tears, once meant to bring understanding, had only deepened the divide. When Kody bought her a new home, it felt like a slap to the rest of the family. Christine and Janelle were still managing debts and unfinished dreams at Coyote Pass, while Robyn's life looked stable and secure. To outsiders, it was evident that Kody had chosen where he wanted to be. To the wives, it confirmed what they'd always feared. Robyn wasn't just another wife. She was the priority, and the truth is, Robyn knew it. She saw the comfort Kody felt in her presence, the calm, the approval, the validation. He didn't have to argue with her. She didn't challenge his leadership. That safety made her his emotional refuge. But it also made her the wedge that pushed everyone else further away. Behind the cameras, conversations turned cold. The family dinners that once symbolized unity now felt like performances. The laughter was forced, the silence heavy. When Robyn spoke, the room shifted. Eyes averted, lips pursed tightly. She'd talk about love and sisterhood, but the words hung in the air like prayers that never reached heaven. Christine began to pull away altogether, going from not visiting to no longer pretending that everything was fine. Janelle remained polite, but her patience thinned. Meri stayed silent, but the silence spoke volumes. And through it all, Robyn continued to cry. People outside the family began making fun of her tears. Viewers called her manipulative, accused her of using emotion to control Kody. But those who looked closer saw something different: grief. The tears weren't power. They were powerlessness. She was watching the dream she'd built her faith around fall apart, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She'd tell Kody at night, "They hate me." He'd shake his head and say, "No, they're just jealous." But deep inside, Robyn didn't believe that. She didn't find hatred in the other wives' eyes. She saw heartbreak. They weren't angry that she existed. They were angry because her existence proved a truth they did not want to face. Kody loved differently now. And while Robyn wept for peace, Kody grew bitter. He blamed the wives for not being loyal, for not treating Robyn with respect. His bitterness turned into rants, his rants into distance. The man who once called his wives his partners now spoke about them like problems to be solved. Robyn began to realize that no amount of tears could fix what was broken. She couldn't carry the guilt of their pain and the burden of Kody's defense at the same time. But she also couldn't walk away. Still, she did believe in the family's purpose, still believed that unity was sacred. If she just endured long enough, God would reward her patience. Instead, she watched as the women she loved drifted away, first emotionally, then physically. Christine's laughter disappeared from the family gatherings. Janelle stopped attending meetings about the future. Meri stopped calling, and Kody stopped trying to reach anyone but Robyn. What was once the family that bragged about harmony had turned into a collection of broken hearts living under one last name. Robyn carried it all like a secret. When the cameras turned off, she wiped her face, held her children, and whispered, "It's going to be okay." But even as she said the words, she wasn't sure she believed them. She saw how the story of her was changing. In the world outside, she was the villain, the woman who smiled while the others suffered. But inside, she felt like the scapegoat. Everyone's pain had become her fault, whether she deserved it or not. Kody told her to ignore it, to focus on their faith and their love. But how could she ignore it when the cost of that love was isolation? Every time Kody defended her publicly, she felt a sting of guilt. Every time he blamed the others, she wanted to shout, "Stop! You're making it worse." But she didn't. Because she knew that disagreeing with him would only turn his frustration on her too. So she remained silent. And in that quiet, the divide became permanent. Christine and Janelle began to envision lives outside of plural marriage. Meri resumed confronting her loneliness in silence. And Robyn stood at the center of it all, witness to everything that was crumbling around her while clutching onto the last fragments of the dream to which she once clung. The tears that once brought comfort now felt endless. They weren't fixing anything but marked the end of something sacred. And Robyn knew then that she had joined not a family that would last forever, but one that was already ending. And as much as she wanted to save it, she couldn't. Because love that is built on imbalance always collapses, and she was now standing in the ruins, the last wife left to see it fall. By the time Christine was ready to leave, the Brown family had already fractured beyond repair. Tensions that had simmered for years finally came to a boiling point, and there Robyn stood, trying to hold together a family that no longer wanted to be held. She watched Christine's confidence grow in the months leading up to her departure. There was something different in her eyes, a quiet strength, a peace that came from finally choosing herself. Robyn admired that strength, even as it terrified her. Because Christine's choice forced Robyn to face a truth she had been avoiding, the family she dreamed of saving didn't exist anymore. When Christine made it known that she was leaving, Kody exploded. He called her disloyal, selfish, even ungrateful. But Robyn saw something else. She saw pain. Christine's voice didn't shake when she said she couldn't stay in a marriage without love. Her tears weren't from guilt. They were from years of being invisible. Robyn cried too, not because Christine was leaving her, but because she knew this was the beginning of the end. She had always hoped the family could be fixed, that if they prayed enough and tried hard and forgave enough, unity would return. Now she saw that unity had died long before Christine ever walked out the door. Still, she implored Christine to reconsider. "You're breaking up the family," she said. Christine shook her head. "The family was already broken, Robyn. I'm just done pretending." Those words struck Robyn like a stone to the heart. She turned to Kody for reassurance, hoping he would find a way to lead with compassion. But instead he turned to anger. He saw Christine's choice as rebellion, not a cry for respect, but an attack on his authority. He ranted about betrayal, about loyalty, about the sacred vows she was abandoning. Robyn stood beside him as he spiraled, and for the first time, she began to feel afraid of the man she had always defended. She had believed Kody's leadership was born of faith, born of love, born of his calling as husband and father. Now it felt different. It felt heavy, hard, desperate. He fought to control what was already slipping through his fingers. And in his desperation, he clung to Robyn tighter than ever. Every time a wife would pull away, Kody would run to Robyn for comfort. She became his refuge, his sounding board, his safe space. But that safety came with a cost. The more he leaned on her, the more isolated she became. The others ceased talking to her altogether. Christine was gone. Janelle remained civil yet distant. Meri, once her closest friend, barely spoke to her. Robyn's tears became constant a symbol of her loneliness. She had wanted family, but all she had left was Kody's anger and her own guilt. Still, she couldn't let go. She convinced herself that God had put her here for a reason, that maybe she was to help Kody heal, to rebuild what was lost. But rebuilding something no one else wanted was impossible. The cameras captured the moment Christine packed her things. Kody's belongings boxed up, her laughter gone, her room empty. Robyn stood there, helpless. She said she didn't understand, that Christine was giving up too soon. But inside, she did understand. She just couldn't admit it. She saw herself reflected in Christine's strength, and it scared her. Because if Christine could leave, maybe someday she could too. But Robyn wasn't ready for that kind of freedom. So instead, she cried harder. The family met one last time to discuss Christine's decision. Kody couldn't keep his anger inside. He labeled her move selfish. Janelle stood up for her. Robyn tried to remain neutral, but ended up crying through most of it. The tension was unbearable. The women who called one another sisters were now strangers seated at the same table. When it was over, Robyn went home and sobbed until her voice broke. Kody paced and ranted about betrayal and respect, but she wasn't listening anymore. All she could think about was the dream that had died before it ever truly lived. For years, Robyn had envisioned a household full of laughter and shared faith, surrounded by sister wives who love one another. Instead, she felt alone in a sea of ghosts created by broken promises. She did not want to be the last wife standing. She did not want to bear everybody's blame. She wanted connection, but connection was gone. As time passed, Kody's anger only deepened. His focus narrowed to his own pain, his own sense of loss. He couldn't see that it was his choices creating the distance he now resented. Every time Robyn cried, he told her to stop taking it so hard. But how could she not? She was watching the family she prayed for fall apart, and she was powerless to stop it. When Christine left, something else left with her: hope. The house felt colder. The laughter was gone. Family gatherings devolved into silent standoffs. Janelle avoided eye contact. Meri kept to herself. Kody retreated deeper into bitterness. And Robyn? She began to wonder if this was her punishment, if she was supposed to carry the burden of everyone's loss. Tears became routine for her, an inability to escape a ritual. She wept for the women who had left, the children who felt abandoned, the husband who couldn't see beyond his pride. But most of all, she wept for the dream which she once had believed was divine. That dream of unity, love, and eternal family had turned to ash. And though she was the last one standing, she realized she wasn't standing at all. She was simply surviving. All her life, Robyn had believed in the beauty of plural marriage, in the idea that love could multiply instead of divide. But now she had come to be living proof that it didn't. It couldn't. Christine's leaving was more than an exit. It was a revelation. The proof that love cannot exist where equality does not. And for Robyn, that realization was the beginning of her unraveling. Because even though she had everything she thought she wanted, Kody's love, his time, his devotion, she had never felt more alone. And deep inside, she knew that her tears weren't for the family's sake. They were for herself, for the woman who had come seeking love and ended up inheriting its ruins. Where Christine had once filled in the cracks, now, upon her leaving, they became impossible to ignore. The air inside their homes felt different, heavier, sharper, colder. Yet even as the family continued, ostensibly with prayer and poise, everyone knew it was over. The dream of unity, the illusion of equality, the promise of forever, all that had collapsed. She felt it in every conversation. It didn't matter what she said or how much she cried. She just couldn't reach the others anymore. Christine was gone. Janelle was pulling away. Meri was fading into the background. And Kody, the man she had once admired for his energy and charisma, had turned bitter and unpredictable. He was angry at everyone, but especially the women who no longer worshipped him. Kody was trying to look in control for the outside world, but inside, because even though she had everything she thought she wanted, Kody's love, his time, his devotion, she had never felt more alone. And deep inside, she knew that her tears weren't for the family's sake. They were for herself, for the woman who had come seeking love and ended up inheriting its ruins. Where Christine had once filled in the cracks, now, upon her leaving, they became impossible to ignore. The air inside their homes felt different. Heavier, sharper, colder. Yet even as the family continued ostensibly with prayer and poise, everyone knew it was over. The dream of unity, the illusion of equality, the promise of forever, all that had collapsed. She felt it in every conversation. It didn't matter what she said or how much she cried. She just couldn't reach the others anymore. Christine was gone. Janelle was pulling away. Meri was fading into the background. And Kody, the man she had once admired for his energy and charisma, had turned bitter and unpredictable. He was angry at everyone, but especially the women who no longer worshipped him. Kody was trying to look in control for the outside world, but inside, he had truly unraveled. His faith in plural marriage had become resentment. Kody blamed the wives for not obeying him, for not showing loyalty, not living up to that vision he once preached. Robyn became his echo chamber. She listened as he vented, tried to soothe him, tried to remind him of their shared faith. But Kody didn't want comfort. He wanted validation. And Robyn, exhausted and guilt-ridden, gave it to him. Every time he said, "They betrayed me," she told him, "You did your best." Every time he said, "They ruined everything," she said, I know. But deep down, she didn't know anymore. She no longer recognized the man to whom she was married. The man who earlier spoke about unity and compassion now spoke about control and punishment. He desired to rebuild, but with obedience. He desired love, but on his terms. And Robyn, caught between love and fear, didn't know how to stop him. The other wives weren't blind. Janelle started to detach emotionally. She wouldn't allow the bitterness of Kody to affect her life. Meri tried to be loyal, but loyalty had turned into humiliation. She sat in silence during family meetings as Robyn and Kody would defend each other while everyone else grew quiet. The dynamics of the family had completely flipped. What was a circle of equals had become a pyramid, and Kody sat at the top with Robyn as his only supporter. To the others, Robyn wasn't just Kody's wife anymore. She was his ally, protector, and even his enabler in so many ways. It wasn't fair, and Robyn knew it. But it was no longer about fairness. The collapse was in slow motion, and all she could do was watch. Now there were few family gatherings. When they did meet, it was tense, polite smiles masking deep resentment. The laughter that used to ring through their shared homes had turned into whispers, and the children sensed it too. They no longer saw the family as one unit, but as separate pieces held together by habit and guilt. Robyn tried to hold on to her faith. She told herself that trials were a part of God's plan, that this pain may be a test. But the more she prayed, the more silence she heard in return. She used to cry because she felt misunderstood. Now she cried because she understood too much. The show caught the moments of her tears, the trembling of her voice, and desperate hopes that things could still be fixed. Viewers rolled their eyes, calling her manipulative. They didn't see how she was crying for something that's already gone. The final blow was Meri's pain. She'd clung to a thread of hope all these years that Kody would see her again, remember the love they once had. But he didn't. When he finally told her he no longer considers them married, Meri didn't cry on camera. She just sat still, composed, her silence louder than any outburst. Robyn tried to reach out, but Meri's heart was closed to her. She didn't want any pity, and that is all Robyn's words sounded like now. One by one, the women who had once called themselves her sisters faded from Robyn's life. The collapse wasn't a discrete moment. It was a gradual series of quiet exits. Christine was no longer laughing. Janelle's calm was gone. Meri's gentle strength a memory. What was left was Kody's anger and Robyn's tears. Kody called it betrayal, Robyn called it heartbreak, but the world called it karma. But no matter what anyone called it, it was over. Robyn tried to hold on. She begged Kody to reach out to the other wives, to apologize, to heal. But he wouldn't. He said they didn't deserve it. He said they had disrespected him. And that's when Robyn realized the truth. Kody didn't want to rebuild. He wanted to be right. His faith had turned into ego, his authority into armor. The more isolated he became, the more he clung to Robyn, and the more suffocated she felt. She loved him, but she was drowning in his bitterness. She had become his audience, his therapist, his emotional anchor, but never his equal. And that's when it hit her. Everything she had tried to fix, every apology she had made, every tear she had cried, none of it mattered. The family wasn't collapsing because of jealousy or faith or Robyn's arrival. It was collapsing because it had never been built on mutual love. It had been built on obedience. And obedience breaks under the weight of time. The man who had once promised eternal love was speaking in ultimatums now. The wives who had once believed in forever had walked away. And the woman who'd thought she'd found her spiritual family now stood alone, holding a dream that had turned to dust. Robyn's tears no longer came from guilt or confusion. They came from grief. Because when a family that's built on faith falls apart, it doesn't just shatter the relationships. It shatters beliefs. The collapse wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the death of a faith. And as Robyn sat by herself in the quiet house, surrounded by memories of what used to be, she finally faced the truth that had been chasing her since the beginning. You can't save a family that doesn't want to be saved. And you can't cry hard enough to bring back something that was never equal in the first place. She had wanted to be the peacemaker. She had become the mourner. The collapse wasn't just Kody's story or Christine's story, it was hers too. The last wife standing, amidst the ruins of the family she'd prayed would last forever. When Christine left, the cracks in the family that had once been invisible became impossible to ignore. The air inside their homes felt different, heavier and sharper and colder. And though the family did its best to carry on with a sense of faith and poise, everyone knew it was over. The dream of unity, the illusion of equality, the promise of forever, all of it had collapsed. With each conversation, Robyn felt it. Nothing she said or how much she cried could reach the others anymore. Christine was gone. Janelle was pulling away. Meri was fading into the background. Kody, the man she once admired for his energy and charisma, was bitter and unpredictable. He was angry with everyone, but most of all with the women who no longer worshipped him. While to the world, Kody was still trying to appear in control, behind closed doors he was unraveling. His faith in plural marriage had turned to resentment. He blamed the wives for not obeying, for not showing loyalty, for not living up to the vision he once preached. Robyn became his echo chamber. She listened as he vented, tried to soothe him, tried to remind him of their shared faith. But Kody didn't want comfort. He wanted validation. And Robyn, exhausted and guilt-ridden, gave it to him. Every time he said, "They betrayed me," she told him, "You did your best." Every time he said, "They ruined everything," she said, I know. But deep down, she didn't know anymore. She did not recognize the man she married. The man who spoke about unity and compassion previously was now speaking of control and punishment, saying he wanted to rebuild, but with obedience. He wanted love, but on his terms. And Robyn, torn by love and terror, knew not how to stay him. The other wives saw it as clear as day. Janelle emotionally checked out. She wouldn't allow Kody's bitterness to contaminate her life. Meri tried to be loyal, but loyalty had morphed into humiliation. She sat silently during the family meetings, observing Robyn and Kody rise to each other's defense while everyone else grew quiet. The family dynamics had completely changed. What was once a circle of equals had become a pyramid, and Kody sat at the top, with Robyn as his only ally. She was no longer just Kody's wife to the others. She became his ally, protector, and sometimes his enabler. It wasn't fair, and Robyn knew it. But that didn't matter anymore. It was like a slow-motion collapse, and all she could do was watch. There were fewer family gatherings now, and when they did meet, it was tense. Polite smiles masking deep resentment. Laughter, once filling their shared homes, had turned into whispers. And the children sensed it too. They no longer saw the family as one unit, but rather separate pieces held together by habit and guilt. She tried to hold on to faith, telling herself trials were part of God's plan, that maybe this pain was a test. But the more she prayed, the more silence she heard in return. She used to cry because she felt misunderstood. Now she cried because she understood too much. The show captured the tears, the trembling voice, and her desperate hope that somehow things could still be fixed. Viewers rolled their eyes and called her manipulative. They didn't see through to the truth that she was crying for something that was already gone. Meri's pain was the coup de grace. She had been clinging to a thread of hope for years that Kody would see her again, that he'd remember the love they once shared. But he didn't. When he finally told her that he no longer considered them married, Meri didn't cry on camera. She just sat there still, composed, her silence louder than any outburst. Robyn tried to reach out to her, but Meri's heart was closed. She didn't want pity, and that's all Robyn's words sounded like now. And so, one by one, the women who at one time called themselves sisters faded from Robyn's life. The collapse wasn't a single moment. Rather, it was a series of quiet exits. Gone was Christine's laughter. Gone, the calm presence of Janelle. Meri's gentle strength was now but a memory. There was only Kody's anger, and Robyn's tears. Kody called it betrayal. Robyn called it heartbreak. The world called it karma. But no matter what anyone called it, it was over. Robyn tried to hold on, begging Kody to reach out to the other wives, to apologize, to heal. But he wouldn't. He said they didn't deserve it, that they had disrespected him. And that's when Robyn realized the truth. Kody didn't want to rebuild. He wanted to be right. His faith had become ego. His authority became armor. The more isolated he became, the more he clung to Robyn, and the more she felt suffocated. She loved him, but she was drowning in his bitterness. She had become his audience, his therapist, his emotional anchor, but never his equal. And that's when it hit her. Everything she had tried to fix, all the apologies she had made, all the tears she had shed, all didn't matter. The family wasn't falling apart because of jealousy or faith or Robyn's arrival. It was falling apart because it had never been built on mutual love. It had been built on obedience, and obedience breaks under the weight of time. The man who once promised eternal love now spoke in ultimatums. The wives who once believed in forever had walked away, and the woman who thought she'd found her spiritual family now stood alone, holding a dream that had turned to dust. No longer were Robyn's tears caused by guilt or confusion. They came from grief. Because when a family built on faith falls apart, it doesn't just shatter relationships. It shatters beliefs. The collapse wasn't just the end of a marriage, but the death of a faith. And as Robyn sat alone in the quiet of her house, surrounded by memories of what used to be, she finally faced the truth that had chased her from the beginning. You can't save a family that doesn't want to be saved. You can't cry hard enough to bring back what was never equal in the first place. She had wanted to be the peacemaker. She had become the mourner. The collapse wasn't just Kody's story or Christine's story. It was hers too. The last wife standing, amidst the ruins of this family that she had prayed would last forever.